Hello and welcome to Control Alt Marketing. I'm your host Meeta Mandavkar. My guest today is Sonesh Prakash, a marketing leader who has always been ahead of the curve. As CEO of CMO Outsourced, Sonesh was a fractional CMO before it was even a thing, and a digital nomad since 2014. This year, he was also recognized as a brand leader by the World Marketing Congress. We dive into his 18-year career, discuss frugality, solopreneurship, and a lot more. His insights on experimenting and finding your niche are invaluable for marketers looking to, start up. I'm thrilled for you to hear his insights and his story. Let's meet Sonesh. So Sonesh, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your early life? How were things growing up and how did you end up in marketing?
Okay. Hello, folks. Thanks, Meeta, for having me on this podcast. And it's great. And, it's been an interesting journey for me. I come from a B2B sales background. I've had nearly 8 years of experience post doing my master's in management. I started in different industry verticals, be it software, banking, HR, and quite a few other verticals. And in those 8 years, they were primarily mostly on enterprise sales. And to be honest, I was a bit disillusioned with my career because I had hopes, like many marketing graduates. I had hopes that I'll probably end up in marketing, but marketing jobs are not that. Especially when the time I graduated. From my MBA, digital marketing was still in its infancy. I'm talking about 2006, and there were not too many marketing roles, typically marketing roles were usually, companies were very picky and choosy and so on and so forth, and you usually ended up getting, a lot of sales roles post your MBA. There was also other thing which is happening was the startup ecosystem was starting off and it was growing. So around 2008, 2009, Mumbai, where I live and I've always been, saw a lot of interesting meetups, starting 2008-9 around startups. So I used to frequent a lot of these meetups, and I used to, come in contact with a lot of startup founders. And I realized that I intend to kind of do something in this space as a consultant. Maybe not have necessarily my own startup, but maybe as a solopreneur or as a consultant, associated with multiple startups as such. So as I kept on, going to such events, I realized that there is a lack of marketing support ecosystem when it comes to B2B companies. And be it large, small, mid-size, they are fairly underserved as a category because the majority of the marketing ecosystem is focusing on B2C. So I thought that this is kind of a blue ocean of sorts. And this I'm talking about 2010-11. And, so what I did was, it was there in the back of my mind that I have to do something in this area. So, 2014 is where I took the leap of faith. I had savings. I had, fortunately, since I stay with my parents, have always been, there is no, issues of rent and EMI and all that stuff. So that, it helps a lot because if you have those kind of challenges, then, startup or entrepreneurship takes a backseat. So I think, I would say the universe has been kind that way is that, I had the luxury of experimenting and, that phrase, "Jeele apni zindagi" kind of, thing which I could do. And, so I took the leap of faith. And I think a few things which I realized I was a little confident about myself was, I'm good at networking. My sales, experience helped me a lot. I write as a hobby. I used to do creative writing, comic strips, poetry, and so on and so forth. I do have a creative bent on mind, and I thought that will help me in my, ability to do content marketing for B2B, which is fairly serious and apparently boring category as termed by a lot of people. And also, I network very, very. As I said, that I was good at networking. I understood digital marketing because even though I didn't do a course, but I used to hustle my way through. I used to read a lot of books, online blogs, and so on and so forth. So it actually helped me build up my confidence in this medium. So in a way, I hustled my way through the first 2-3 years, getting projects. And that's where the networking bit helped, because I used to keep on visiting a lot of these events and, tom-tomming about my experience and so on and so forth. And I think that journey also initially took 2-3 years. First 2-3 years, I did various projects. I remember I started off, doing some consulting in the UI UX space, not really core design because I'm not a designer, but in the interviewing space. So I understood a few nuances of what goes in UI UX research at the research stage. And, also I had a few companies. One of my first clients were a very large US based company, but their India arm. And, I got to know of this guy who was heading sales for that company, and they didn't have any marketing support in their India office because their US office used to mostly look after the international, marketing, and India wasn't really given to too much hand-holding. So over there, that's where my journey began, wherein even though it was a small kind of role, I helped their team in setting up some email campaigns towards their customers, started using solutions like MailChimp. This I'm talking about 2015, not even 2014 for that matter. And that's when slowly and steadily my journey as a content marketer began. And since then, I guess I've worked with nearly about 30 odd companies in varying capacities. So it started off with doing, content marketing campaigns, writing blogs, case studies. I mean, basically the whole hog around content for B2B companies to, in a way hustling my way through and, wearing the hat of a virtual CMO over a period of time. So I realized that, content, having the ability to write content and, think about repurposing content and, basically wearing the hat of a journalist, in a B2B space really helps a lot, because I guess it's all about stories. And unlike B2C, which is largely driven by creative campaigns and all, yes, you can do, get a bit creative, but I think within B2B, it's largely driven by facts and figures, and you can be a bit creative around that, but then it's largely driven by, content around your brand, around your product, around your service, and a lot of long-form content which can be consumed in this manner. So that's where I think my experience in writing and my passion for writing also helped in a way. I guess even now, a lot of my work revolves around communication. The other aspects of actual execution of campaigns and all, I usually end up outsourcing it or roping in people, as and when required. So that's broadly been my journey. And I think, I would say that to all, to people who are listening and want to get into this B2B marketing space, I think one thing which has worked for me, and I think which is working for many marketers, is the ability to create content, because the other things can actually be outsourced, or you can have a network, but then content strategy is something which remains a fulcrum.
Got it. And I think that's a solid start. It's very interesting to know that you were always very keen on getting into marketing, but at that point of time when you started your career, and actually, as a matter of fact, even when I started my career, for anyone to get into marketing was quite difficult. Even if you were doing your MBA, you had to be from a certain tier of college to get especially into like B2C kind of marketing. Normally, a lot of jobs started off as BD or maybe in sales. So I think that part of your journey definitely resonates. I think startups have definitely leveled the playing field when it came to, getting into marketing roles now. And that's a very welcome trend over the last few years. I think one thing that I would really like to understand is, you mentioned once during our call earlier that, you have very strong affinity with sales because you have worked in sales yourself. And that has really helped you even right now in your role as a fractional CMO, as CMO who works with multiple companies, multiple startups, multiple industries. And normally people are very, especially folks in marketing are not as keen to get into the sales side of things. Would you just share your experience around that?
Sure. Being in sales definitely helped. It helped me, if I were to put one word, it helped me empathize better with the sales team. And in B2B, marketing ends up being more of a support function for a sales team in a way. Okay. It cannot work in silos, unlike B2C, because B2C marketing has an identity of its own, and they can pretty much be a siloed function and still, have a separate identity. And in B2B marketing, again, depending on the nature of the medium, it has to be, because, sales cycles are long and it's largely sales driven. You are not necessarily facing the, customer facing. You are mostly in the background. Your job is to ensure that the salesperson's life is smooth, because in the entire sales journey, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months or 9 months, depending on the kind of product you're selling and the value of the product, the buying community involved. So in that case, if you have been through the grind yourself, you understand and empathize better with the team. You try to speak their language. You mirror the challenges mirror the challenges, opportunities in your content as well, and that is what helps you gain confidence and the relevancy in the content. So I think that is what helped me in my journey, and it still helps me. I guess because I think as a solopreneur, you end up wearing multiple hats, right? You are a sales guy, you are a marketing guy, you're operations, HR, admin, whatever you call it, and in a way, you have to do everything. So I guess that in a way, I would say that everybody should start off their journey in entrepreneurship by being a solopreneur, and then kind of slowly and steadily, either if you want to scale it up accordingly. But then I think once you realize that you are in that hustle mode for a year or two, you will be able to learn a lot more about what are your capabilities and where will you exactly need support. And even if you, let's say, are building a business, and if you want a co-founder, it's always good to know where you are, what aspects of you are can be complemented. So for example, somebody who's good in sales and marketing, he would probably not be that great necessarily in tech. So let's say if you're thinking of building a product, so you'll probably find a co-founder who's in tech, and you can complement the skills. So that's how typically things work. Similarly, over here in my journey, the reason I gave this example is as I'm working as a virtual CMO, obviously I'm not really adept, or I'm not really keen on doing everything in marketing. It's an ocean. So what I do is I carefully curate partners who could be individuals or agencies in their own right, and bring them in based on the client's needs and the budgets and their objectives. That's how it is. So it's all about co-creating along with partners in the journey, and ensuring that the client gets the best bang for his buck. That's how it is.
Makes sense. I think as a solopreneur, especially the part that you said that you don various hats. So I think experience as sales comes in extremely handy, because at the end of the day, you're also responsible for getting in business. So that's a very useful skill to have. I think one thing that I would really like to dive into next is you transitioned from a very structured corporate environment. You worked with some very big brands, and then you moved into like a very startup ecosystem, which is a huge change, and that can be challenging. So what were some initial hurdles that you encountered, and how did you go about, overcoming them?
So fortunately, as I said, that the universe has been kind. So the most initial hurdle which most people have is, paisa milega kya isme? I have so much to kind of shell out every month. Would I be able to so that insecurity was less. I mean, obviously it is there because you're leaving everything, but it was less for me because, I didn't have issues with respect to where the next meal is going to come from, or where, what will happen if my savings run out after 6 months or so. Nothing. I mean, I had enough savings, and I think what really matters, and I've shared it in public forums as well, that I'm a very frugal person. Okay. Frugality is something which I guess I am just, I would say that I'm blessed, and I think I'm happy to don't have that many desires, which gets me in a position that I can actually experiment a lot with my career and life. Because even now, let's say I need X and I'm making 5X. So I guess that is in a good space to have, but that 5X may be very, very less for regular people. Okay. So I'm just saying that, I'm just giving an example that frugality makes a lot of difference in frugality in your way of approach, and apparently also it helps me in my role as a marketer, because marketing unfortunately is not associated with frugality. it's always as a function, it's always suggest कि भाई ये तो cost center है हमारे लिए, तो बस पैसा I'm just sorry I'm breaking into Hindi in between, but typically the whole the question where we are asked is, okay, why do you need so much budgets? Why can't we do it in a in a cheaper manner, or in a much lesser budget? And I guess the very fact that I look at my life in a frugal manner, I start thinking from my client side that where I can, I become like a Marwadi of sorts, right? How can I, get the best bang for the buck for this client in the least amount possible. So that is my approach, and it has worked for me, and clients have appreciated that. They always, I don't think any client has who's worked with me has said that he's wasted budgets or whatever. So that is the whole idea. In fact, when I curate my vendors also, I don't necessarily I have extremes. I usually give that suggestion to my client as well, that listen, if you want a 5-star hotel, this is the company. If you want a 3-star hotel, this is the company. If you want a 1-star or whatever lodge, this is the company. And so this giving them this perspective is also something which they appreciate, that you're giving them perspective. Because usually what happens is sometimes clients confuse me as an agency, which I'm not. So I tell them, listen, I am your extended arm. Agency has no there is no need for an agency to give you a lot of options, because they will earn money from you only when the retainer is high. It goes high. Okay, and it goes higher for that matter. And also, the more media budget you spend, the better the commissions they get, right? So their interest is not to save money for you. Okay, and my interest is, since I am getting a fixed retainer from you, typically, my interest to ensure is that you get the best bang for the buck. You are paying me for my time. I am ensuring that my responsibility is to ensure that you get the best bang for the buck. So that's what my objective is. So I just thought I'll just give you this, because this background also is important for me as a journey, and because frugality is the center of the things. Center of the ecosystem. So for me, what works is also that because I have savings, and because of volatile nature of this profession, it becomes easier to navigate the peaks and troughs. That's how it is. Hope I've answered your question.
Super helpful to know. Yep, you definitely have. I think one aspect that I would definitely like to touch upon is, yes, I think the part of your nature that you mentioned, that, you're very frugal as a person, and that personal value also extends to the way in which you do your business right now. I think one thing that I would really like to understand is, so this frugality was one part, but when you work in corporate, things are very structured. There are systems in place. There are processes in place. For you to take off as a solopreneur after working in such a structured setup, how was that like, especially navigate? So right now you're a solopreneur, you're responsible for everything. You're supposed to make sure you're getting the best for your clients. You're finding them the right kind of talent to, bring on board to do certain parts of the whole, whatever engagement that is there. So how did that journey go for you? I think because you started off in 2014, and you started off at a time wherein fractional work or even consultancy as marketing was very new. It was in its infancy. So how did you translate your corporate experience into like a startup marketer kind of an experience?
So as I said that, okay, it again goes back to what I was good at. Okay, I used to network like crazy. I still do, on and off. I kind of mellowed down a bit, but I used to be like a startup butterfly in a way. Back in between 2010 to 2014, at least in Mumbai. Okay, there was a phase in my life when if I'm going to any startup event, it's very highly likely that I will probably end up knowing 5 to 10 people in that event. Okay, because of past association or something. So that kind of helped me over a period of time in people remembering me, and this bald look also kind of helps. It makes me stand out in a lot of spaces. So I guess that is something which helped me. So networking definitely is the first thing. Second is since I was in a way acquainted with the early bunch of startups in Mumbai, because I used to keep on frequenting these events even long before I thought of leaving the corporate world. there was some kind of comfort already set in that boss mujhe pata hai, I understand this ecosystem. I understand the way they talk, they think, they feel, and I think I will be able to navigate my way around. Second is when I looked back at my career, and this is again something which was a realization that when I look back in my career, I started off my journey post my MBA with a small company, a digital marketing agency, which is now a part of Publicis Group. They got acquired, but then it's a company called Indigo Consulting. They are one of the best digital marketing agencies around. In fact, back in 2000, this I'm talking about 2006-7. Okay, when they were the earliest days of digital marketing, wherein only a few good agencies were present who were doing actual proper work like SEO, SEM, and everything. So I started off my career with digital marketing as a client servicing and business development guy. And when I look back at my whole career, I think that particular small company and the kind of mentorship I had because I was reporting directly to the CEO. And I guess right from this bald, kind of look, which I got inspired by from the CEO, I had to the knowledge around digital marketing and around pitching. And I mean, that I think the learning curve was very steep over there, as compared to the other organizations wherein it were riddled by politics and I don't know what not. Because the bigger the organization you go to, you are just a cog in the wheel. Because there are a lot of things which you can't influence and you can't do much. Whereas if it's a smaller organization, 50, 100 people strong, your work is noticed. You are noticed as a person. You know if you are adding value or not. Okay. And that's when I realized that, while larger organizations have their own pros, but for somebody like me, it was easy to get lost in these companies. And I thought that I will do better in a smaller setup. And that's what has worked for me. So most of my own ICP for that matter, I would primarily work with seed funded or Series A funded startups who have a lean team of 50 to 100 people, okay, max to max. And I'm usually working closely with the senior management, the CEO, or typically the second, ideally the CEO or the top management. I would have pitched myself to them. They would have seen the value. They would have agreed everything. So now most of my interactions are with the top brass. So I know where the company is going, where I'm adding value, where I need to improve. And so all these things matter for me. As compared to, my experience in larger companies like ICICI Bank, Adecco, wherever I worked. I realized that I was a bit lost over there, and I wasn't really able to utilize all my skills because you are easily siloed in a large company, right? You have to just focus on what you're doing, what function, whatever that siloed function you're doing. Whereas in a smaller setup, it's easier to wear multiple hats and easier to discover yourself. So, which is what happened to me, as we go. So, you are learning, you are hustling, so there is no need to hustle in a large company comparatively. Sab kuch set hai, all processes are set, you just need to follow them. You just need to, you are not encouraged to think beyond it, ideally, because it's like, unfortunately, it's like slightly a crab mentality because nobody will encourage innovation. And that's why a lot of large organizations look up to startups for innovation and they want to incubate startups in this thing. And because they know that within their confines, innovation is limited. So that is what I've realized, in my journey. Again, these could be personal observations, but I think they do resonate with quite a few people.
They definitely resonate with me. I started off my career with a pretty big brand and I had very similar experiences, which is how I ended up at startups later. I think that whole idea, what you mentioned about trying to find that place wherein you get to grow, where you get to learn, you get to hustle. And it also depends on your individual values, right? If that's something that you really enjoy doing, like going above and beyond the work that you've been given, then startups are definitely like the place for you to work.
Yeah, so I think all these things tie in frugality because startups not necessarily pay you well. Second is, working with smaller companies, startups are usually small. Third is, getting freedom to do what you want, as in to hustle, to A/B test your way through things. Startups give you that space. So a lot of things work for me. If I look at my, definition of a good workspace or a good work culture, all these things are, there. Also, one of the biggest things which made me consider this move is I wanted to be independent of the space. So I wanted to work from anywhere. Okay, so there is this term called digital nomad, right? Which is something doing the rounds. I mean, I'm talking about I've been a digital nomad since 2014. So, I mean, what I took was that was the beginning. Even before WeWork and all came into play, I have a membership with this co-working space called Regus, and since 2015, for that matter. And I've been, I have a business lounge membership, flexi space membership, which allows me to sit, across their centers globally. Okay. So 2019, I was backpacking in Vietnam, and I was using the US center over there to work. So yeah, so that also as a solopreneur, as a startup, enthusiast, that kind of flexibility also works. So if I have spent X in my entire 7 years on Regus, I would have gained 25X out of it because of the networks and opportunities I've made. So I think, again, there's a reason I'm sharing this is as a solopreneur, a startup founder, early stage startup founder. It's always good to set up base in a co-working space because you end up leveraging a lot over there as well. So I used to attend a lot of meetups in co-working spaces and so on and so forth, and that also kind of helped me, grow in my journey. So I've got quite a few clients who have, through this medium as well.
I think one thing that I would like to understand is you've mentioned so far in our conversation that, networking has been something that you've been very good at. I think you also mentioned, refer to yourself as a startup butterfly. So I think I would like to understand is networking is not everyone's strength. Actually, a lot of people struggle with it. And it's led you to great opportunities. It's led you to actually, build a life and a career for yourself that works for you. And that was at a time wherein digital nomad was not even a term. So just let's walk a little bit through, how we have approached the whole networking, how it worked pre-COVID, how it's working now.
Sure.
Let's talk a bit about it.
So, as I said, that I used to frequent a lot of these startup meetups. There were these websites. I mean, the website's still there, but meetup.com used to be very active back then. And Facebook events, I used to keep every morning, I used to take a look at what's happening in Mumbai in the startup space and Facebook event, anything around startups or so on and so forth. And also, I was active on LinkedIn on and off, keeping on writing relevant content around marketing. And so I guess all these 3-4 areas really helped a lot because the ecosystem was small. And, more or less you could find the same people coming. I'm talking about early 2009-10 when I started going to these events. So, in fact, I remember, Kunal Shah from Kared. He used to come. He's a Mumbaiite, and he used to come in, when he was building Free Charge back then. Okay, and I remember he asking me that, I'm looking for some dynamic sales professionals for my company. Would you like to join? I declined respectfully because I was back then working in a larger company. I think I was working Times of India back then. And I was skeptical कि boss ये सब startups में कुछ फायदा है कि नहीं and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I could have been easily the top, the first 10, 20, 15 employees of Flipkart for that matter. Sorry, Flipkart as in Free Charge. So I guess, it was an interesting time. I rubbed shoulders with these guys, these giants who are, big in their respective spaces. And learned a lot from their journey, because, in the initial events, there was a series of events called Startup Saturday back in 2008-9. And they are not functional now as such as a community, but they used to have these events at SP Jain College, in SP Jain MBA College inside the campus. And I usually really look forward to it because that was a time when only this community was functional in Mumbai as compared to many communities in Bangalore. So I should really look forward to it, and that has added a lot to my journey, including my initial set of clients. And that was a phase in my life where I also tried doing multiple things, which made me. I tried my hand at stand-up comedy. I sucked at it big time. But this was the earliest. This was the time when stand-up comedy was starting off in the country, and in a way, I was performing. Trying to perform along with the likes of Atul Khatri, Rahul Subramaniam, and all these guys. So we are all, contemporaries in a way because we all started off together. Obviously, they were good at what they did, but it was an interesting journey because the reason I'm sharing this is because this also gave me confidence to start speaking in public, not worrying about getting fooled or whatever, and losing my inhibitions as such. And so I guess I write poetry. I tried performing poetry also, open mics, and also I think all these in a way added to my personality, added to my confidence as an individual, which started showing even in my professional networking engagements. So yeah, that's something which I tried doing. I think everybody, all of us have read, that the more newer challenges you face, and the more you step out of your comfort zone, the better you get at things, and it's only for the better. So obviously there are measured risks you can take, but yeah, I think taking risks is only going to help you in the future. So that's how it is. So yeah, I think this is the other few things which helped me during COVID. Interestingly, the universe was kind. My business grew 3x, 4x because a lot of B2B companies, which erstwhile had to kind of resort to traditional means like events and SDRs and sales guys going for cold calls and all that all stopped. They had to leverage on digital, and that's why some people like me gained importance. And once they tasted digital, they realized that it could be an interesting medium, so they wanted to continue with it. So what I'm saying is, it was in a way an interesting disruption in the B2B space. And a lot of companies, even traditional ones, started adopting digital, and they got the taste of it, and they realized that it could be a great way to build a brand in a way. So I guess that is something which helped. So offline, definitely you can't substitute offline engagement. So one advice I give to people who are not necessarily most extroverted lot is that if they usually in a event, and something this has worked for me as well, is being vocal in events. Vocal as in not just for the sake of saying things, but asking the right questions when the opportunity arises. So one of the ways I try to stand out in events is by asking the right questions, or asking questions when a Q&A opportunity was given. So that is something which has helped me, and it continues to help me. Being a little vocal during events. Not necessarily, I would say that one way. Social butterfly is like, okay, is that keep on interacting, try to meet as many people in the room. I used to do that, but even as an introvert, if you can just make yourself visible by these things, by not necessarily speaking to everyone in the room, but by just being vocal about your thoughts and opinions around specific subjects. That is one of the ways you can, make yourself heard and differentiate yourself in a crowded environment. So that is something which I would suggest that, people can do. And beyond that, we have platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook and all, wherein a lot of introverts can actually share stuff which they otherwise won't in this thing. So again, that is something which, can be used, and a lot of people like me as well used during the lockdown, and I think it helped.
I think the next thing that I would like to ask is, and you've covered parts and aspects of this in your earlier responses, but you built a career outside of traditional structures, and this was very uncommon back in 2014. At that point of time, you had like certain amount of experience, sizable experience. So like, how did you approach like this entire unconventional, route of becoming an external fractional marketing resource, and especially within a startup ecosystem? You've answered this question in bits and pieces, but I would really like to revisit it once again.
Sure. So, as I was saying that, I was wearing multiple hats. I was wearing hats of a, UX researcher at the beginning, to content development guy in the, earlier stage, and then content marketing to, it was more or less the way you pitched yourself. Okay. So you have one client who's, considered you as a virtual CMO, so then you make a case study out of it, and then you start pitching yourself, in the same manner with two other clients. And it is all about, creating that one template. So I would say that I do have a winning template of sorts for me. When I say template, a presentation of sorts, which I usually make it as part of my pitch to clients. Okay. And I always suggest people also, when they go for interviews for CMO roles or something, see if you can consider that interview as a pitch, okay, of you as a consultant trying to win their business. Trust me, your approach towards the interview will change. Proactively tell them that I would like to give you a presentation okay, after researching about your company, and I would like to learn a little bit more about your company and get back to you. So that gives you an edge because the client also thinks that, he's interested in learning more about my company. He's trying to spend some time, understanding my company and, sharing his thoughts, however preliminary it might be. And in a lot of cases, it has helped me, pitch myself better, make the client understand my value proposition better, as well as not let them negotiate much. Because once they see through the kind of work you've done for free, and the remuneration asking, they start seeing the value, and they themselves will be hesitant in negotiating too much, unless obviously you've stated a very obnoxiously high amount. That's a separate thing, but typically that is my experience being. So as I said, that I hustled my way wearing different hats, and to the extent that I could term myself as a CMO of sorts. Yeah.
How did you discover your niche and your ideal client profile? You mentioned that your ideal client profile is typically smaller startups, 50 to 100 employees, where you directly work with the founders. So that way, you have like a direct understanding of how business is growing, how you also get feedback very directly on the work that you're doing. Can you share some key lessons and milestones in building and growing your successful business because of working with this niche?
Sure. So see, it was like a thing which I stumbled upon internally. I mean, because few of my initial clients were software companies. Okay. And I realized that I'm more comfortable speaking that language because I was interested in that space. I kept on reading around that. And, the fact that I had a BSc computer science degree, even though I have not even written one proper a piece of code, but still, because I could understand software and I had that background and plus an MBA, made some difference also in my understanding. I used to read a lot in that domain, at least from a technology and marketing standpoint. So that kind of helped me in empathizing better with the software domain, and that could also be seen in my interest in pitching more and learning more about the subject. So that is what over a period of time happened. That because of my background and interest, I used to pitch more. I used to stand out in the software side of things, and I realized that is an area which is anyways underserved. So it might as well focus on that, and they pay you well as well comparatively. As compared to traditional B2B or manufacturing domain, they pay you well as well. So it is a function of a lot of things. Yeah.
Got it. And I think, so one other part of it, like I think you've already mentioned that, frugality has been at the center of everything that you've done, and you provide a lot of value to your clients. That has been a very important part of, as value as a person and value that you bring to clients. I think one thing that I would like to get into is, this is right now, when you started off, it was not a very differentiated market, so to speak. I think you would have been one of those few players offering these kind of services. Now it's become very, very congested, so to speak. A lot of people are venturing into consultancy. They're venturing into the fractional side of things. So what is it that, you need? And in a way, that's bringing in challenges in your career as well. So how do you approach this particular problem statement? How do you make sure that, you're standing apart in the value that you're providing to your clients? What's the differentiation like?
So, as I said, the ICP itself is a comparatively a differentiator. So within B2B SaaS also, I primarily work with enterprise B2B SaaS, where the sales cycles are longer, ACVs are very high. And, by now I've worked with nearly all. I mean, I work with fintech, IoT, renewable tech, ad tech, martech. I mean, more or less all the techs kind of covered in a way. So that also helps me, kind of empathize better with people in the technology domain. Okay. So, so I guess it's a matter of experience and the matter of, as I said that, since I bring a bit of sales, so one of the things which I differentiate is also that I can actually be an extended sales arm also for some people if I have the network in that area. So I have got more than 20,000 connections on LinkedIn. That also in a way sometimes helps people, So I guess that is that as well as combined with this initial first mover advantage of sorts comparatively to being able to wear the sales hat if required to. because, as I said, that sales and marketing are complementary services in B2B. So I think all these things play an important role. And unlike B2C, you have to master 2-3 platforms in B2B. You have to understand LinkedIn, email, SEO and SEM for that matter. For a lot of B2B companies is tricky. Okay. So I often end up not using this thing, because most of my clients are verticalized enterprise B2B SaaS, wherein the search volumes are very low, and it doesn't make sense for them to invest too much in that. So then I focused my energies on 2-3 platforms, and that's what I kind of do for my clients. So I think largely it has been focus, as well as the other factors which I mentioned. Yeah.
You've been solopreneur for the last 9 years. And a lot of people right now, whenever I speak with anyone, especially who are in the early stages of career, and I ask them that, no, what is it that you want to do in maybe next few years? The answer always is, I want to start a business of my own, or I want to do my own thing. I don't want to work anymore for anyone. I think one thing that a lot of people don't have very concretely in their minds is what is it that they would like to do next. So as a entrepreneur, as a solopreneur who's been doing this for a while, what advice would you give to these folks who are still at that figuring out stage? How do they go about getting, how do they go about figuring out what is it that they should how do they find their next passion or their next
you stumble upon it? Yeah. So I think just give yourself space and do multiple things. I mean, the only way you can figure things out is by doing many things. Okay. As I said, there was a phase wherein I was doing multiple things. There were times that I used to think that I can become a stand-up comedian. But then over a period of time, I realized that, I suck at it, even though that helped me in some ways, but I did suck at it. But then having said that, I remember, in a way, I would credit myself for bringing Rahul Subramaniam to because he got his first gig, he's sort of like close friend, but he was an acquaintance, through, I remember 2014, somebody introduced me on Facebook and told me that this guy is good and you should probably take him to an open mic. So I got him his first open mic, and obviously then the rest is history. So I'm just saying that, I tried various things. I sucked at many, or was mediocre or this thing many, but I'm happy that I tried. And during that trial phase, I, kind of discovered a lot about myself, which I would have otherwise not discovered. So I think what people need to do is keep on trying, keep on hustling. And over a period of time, they will realize they will stumble upon things which, they would have not otherwise stumbled upon. That's how it is. So whatever your interests lie, again, it's easier for me to say because fortunately I could do that. I mean, and as I said, that universe was kind, and I've only gratitude towards the universe that I was, able to do it. But in whatever way possible, without necessarily leaving your job. And I didn't leave my job before I had some, faith in myself in some way. So I guess fortunately we are living in a world wherein doing 2-3 things is possible, especially if you're single and if you're not, having other kind of responsibilities and priorities. So till the time you are in your 20s, early 20s, or, you're single, you have more time in your hands comparatively. So I think you can try and do various things. If you are a creative person, then try doing various things within the creative medium. Experiment with your creativity. And again, we are living in a world which has creativity can be so enhanced with the likes of ChatGPT or now Sora and I don't know whatnot. So I think, even with non-creative, people, this is enabling them to be creative, right? So I guess, I think it's just a matter of experimenting and figuring out what works. If there's a possibility, you can work pro bono with a startup. So what I'm saying is that is what I think worked for me, and I think that is how the typical process of discovery happens. I don't think this is a very linear process. You have to keep on trying, keep on doing different things. So, but if you don't do different things, you will not learn or you'll not discover yourself. That's how it is.
Understood. I think next thing that I would like to understand is before we wind up this conversation is I think a lot of people these days, especially folks who are in their very early stages of career, I get asked this, juniors in the team, do I get into like a specialization mode early on, or should I go about exploring like more broader avenues? Maybe, they're working right now in growth and they're wondering if they should directly jump into product marketing, or should they just work in marketing in general? They're very confused about, generalist versus specialist. Would love to understand your take on it, and what's your experience
See,
like?
as I said, that my experience, in fact, has always been a stumble upon a discovery kind of a thing, right? So I started off with something. I did wear various hats because of whatever reasons, and then gradually hustled my way through positioning myself as a virtual CMO of sorts, right? So unless I would have donned various hats, I wouldn't have been able to empathize with those specific hats later on. So, for example, I can work well, or people, like I do have some content writers or content writing agencies whom I work with for some of my clients, and they appreciate the fact that I, give them a very detailed brief when it comes to writing a strategic piece of content, a white paper or something, because I have written that myself, in the past. So I understand and empathize their challenges of not getting a good brief, and that's why from my end I try to make because I've been on the other side, that receiving briefs. I know that writing a good brief is very important, because garbage in, garbage out. If you give them garbage, or if you give them incomplete stuff, you will get garbage. So that is something which, as a marketer, I have learned. So when it comes to process, this is a bit of a process orientation which I have got from myself, that, when I'm giving briefs to people, I try to be as clear as possible. That's how it is. So yeah, so net, what I'm trying to say is, when people, you in your early stage of the career, try and wear various hats. See if you can work in a more generalized field than a very specific field. Because if you are working in very siloed fields, you will not necessarily be able to appreciate the other fields as well. So see if you can wear multiple hats in the same company or whatever, and taste multiple things, and then decide what you want to do in that field.
So this is very helpful to know. I think, again, just revisiting the question, based on your career, like, what do you think, that you've learned over the past 15, 20 years of your, working, that you would like to impart to the listeners?
Sure.
That, you've learned the hard way.
So that, I think it's basically a summary of what I shared during the interview. One is trying out different things. Okay. Fortunately, and again, in the context of people right now, they anyways have options, various options in education. I remember, visiting my alma mater again for a startup event. I studied in Jain College and did my BSc Computer Science there. I think a month back I visited them again for a startup event. And I remember asking somebody that, what are the different courses being offered in the college now? And I was surprised that even BCom had so many variations right now. So I'm just saying that we are living in a world where options are many, and doing multiple things also is possible. So what I'm trying to say is, doing multiple things, you should not shy from doing multiple things, and you should not limit yourself with some preconceived notions about yourself. Okay, and again, it's easier said than done, but as I said, that the more you try different things, you will discover new parts of yourself. So that is something very important. Second is, to each his own, but I do advocate frugality of living, in the way of life, as a way of life. And I think it has helped me immensely. It has kept me grounded. It has kept me comparatively less insecure than many people. Obviously I'm human. I do have my level of insecurities, but I guess the fact that I don't have too many needs helps me in my career. Network like crazy, because I think network is a network. It has helped me, and is still helping me for that matter. And I guess there are 3-4 things which I would say I would leave, for the younger generation to imbibe.
Great. That's very helpful to know. I think it's been very interesting listening to your story, and especially the way you've transitioned from, your career has been interesting. You started off working with very established companies. It did not fit with your career vision or the way in which you wanted to work. So you actually went about creating a career for yourself in a very different time altogether. I think that's extremely inspiring. At least for me, I found it very inspiring. I think listeners would also find it super inspiring. So Sonesh, like, firstly, thank you so very much for taking time to speak with me today and for so graciously and so generously sharing your story. It was enlightening. It was inspiring. Uh, I know that you've recently won an award for, I think brand
So it
marketer
was
for the year from World
World
Congress.
Brand Congress. They were felicitating a group of marketers. I was the lucky one of them as well. So yeah.
It's amazing. Congratulations on that. I'm so excited to see what's next for you. I keep on following your content on LinkedIn, and I'm also in the show notes later. I'm going to link your LinkedIn in the description so that, others can also go check out your content. Thank you once again. It was
Thanks,
amazing.
Nita. Thanks, and really appreciate you asking the right questions and bring the story out from me. And I look forward to more such interactions in the future. Yeah.